tonight's town council meeting. Glad to see so many smiling faces out in the audience. It is Tuesday, January 13th, a couple of rainy days in a row, but I'm sure we'll have lots of good news in council chambers. It is the appointed hour. I will note that the Mayor Pro Tem, Ms. Thomasina Stokes Marshall, is not here this evening. She's under the weather, but we know she'll be back strong with us next week. So the first and second things on the agenda are prayer and a pledge, and I'm going to ask Chaplain Lydia Cotton to come and lead us in prayer, and then Mr. Glassen will lead us in the pledge.
Let us pray. Father God, thank you for this day. I'm asking you to bless this city, bless our mayor, police department, fire department, every single one of them. Every single department, every single person resident that lives here, please, and out of my presence as well. I'm asking you to give us wisdom to work together, to come together, ideas, help. Give us that. Give us the ideas to reach out to the community and do the work that you call us to do. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Face the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Pagliarini, are we in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 4, I need approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion in several seconds. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
No.
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes,
I tried
sir,
to get you
Mr.
before the eyes there. I'm not sure if this is the proper time to do that, but what I'd like to do is possibly move up item number 11.5. Move that up if we could. It's the last item on our agenda. And if possible, I'd like to be able to move that up to the beginning if we can, like we've done before, so that these good folks will have an opportunity to go home early, don't have to stay here the whole night. That's okay, unless they just want to.
Well, Gary, I certainly appreciate you asking. I did ask for clarification. We certainly could move it up to old business number 1 would be appropriate, but since it is an old business final reading, that would be the appropriate place to put it. That's not going to help them a whole lot in the agenda.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to move to amend the agenda for tonight to move item 11, is it B5 to 11B1. It's not much, but it's a little symbolic something, and it might be 10 or 15 minutes.
Second.
Okay, I have the first, we voted on the first, so we're passed. That's fine. I have a motion and a second to move item 11B5 to 11B1. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes carry. I have a couple of public hearings on the agenda tonight, and I suppose that will be you. Oh, wait, no, first the judges, right? All right, I'd ask the judges and their families to please come forward. We have to do a little swearing in, that is. Don't come right up here with your families. So we make sure everybody sees you. Sometimes as an auctioneer, I tend to rush these, but I'll try to go slow for you. We have 2 judges being sworn in tonight, so we will, if you will repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that
I do solemnly swear that
I am duly qualified,
I am duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state,
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties of municipal judge
to exercise the duties of municipal judge
for the town of Mount Pleasant,
in the town of Mount Pleasant,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge those duties and will preserve
discharge those duties and will preserve
protect and defend
protect and defend
the Constitution of this state and of the United States.
the Constitution of this state and of the United States.
I pledge to uphold the integrity
I pledge to uphold the integrity
and independence of the judiciary.
and independence of the judiciary.
I pledge,
I pledge,
in the discharge of my duties,
in the discharge of my duties,
to treat all persons who enter
treat all persons who enter
the courtroom with civility,
the courtroom with civility,
fairness,
fairness,
and respect.
and respect.
I pledge to listen courteously,
I pledge to listen courteously,
sit impartially,
sit impartially,
act promptly,
act promptly,
and rule after careful and considerate deliberation.
and rule after careful and considerate deliberation.
I pledge to seek justice
I pledge to seek justice
and justice alone.
and justice alone.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You are sworn. Congratulations.
Appreciate all you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
You know how respected you guys are out
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good to see you.
Good, thank you so much. Paul, thank you.
Judge Hesse, thank you. Ms. Michelle, thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Good to see you, man. Bye, guys.
Come Padres.
No, thank you. He likes nibbling that. No, thank you. One of my favorite parts of my jobs. Now, we do have a couple of public hearings, and I will turn it over to our planning director, Christine Fairwood.
Good evening. We do have two public hearings that were previously advertised. These are both pertaining to Central Mount Pleasant. The first one is item B, which is a request to amend the comprehensive plan. The second one is a request to amend the development agreement for Central Mount Pleasant. The comprehensive plan public hearing requires a 30-day public notice, so this advertisement as well as the development agreement were advertised over 30 days ago. Many of you here know that prior to the Planning Commission public hearing on the zoning, the property owner, the applicant, actually withdrew all of their requests, and so this would be, they withdrew the zoning, they withdrew the comprehensive plan request, and they also withdrew the development agreement request. So tonight I am just, since it was already advertised and is already on the agenda, am just providing notice that both of those items have been withdrawn. I would like to further make sure that everyone is aware that a development agreement normally takes two public hearings, so there would be one that was scheduled for next month, for February, but that particular public hearing will not occur, again, because the advertisement, or the application rather, on which both of these were advertised have been withdrawn, and so that public hearing will not occur in February.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Anyone here that wishes to speak on this public hearing? I do have someone on item number C. Jerry Scurry? Jerry, if you'd come up to the podium, state your name and address. You have 2 minutes for the record.
Jerry Scurry, I live at 1386 Woodlock Road in Laurel Lakes. I understand the developer, the Hassel Tract Associates, are requesting a waiver to waive the year's requirement to put this back in front of the Planning Commission, which is interesting because, you know, with all, the staff had done the report, it was coming in front of the Planning Commission in December. Obviously, the staff's report was not to their liking, so they pulled it, which is understandable, because it was very, very overreaching. And I don't have to go through the whole plan because you guys know what it is. And, you know, basically 30.25 acres of low-density residential to change to commercial. And that changes all kind of densities in there, up from, I believe it's 719 units to 1,045 units, plus 415 unit continuing care retirement community. And, you know, I just caution everybody to see what's going on here. It's an amazing amount of density in a small piece of land of about 80 usable acres now. And also, one of the other requests is to remove another 76 historic trees. They've already removed 53. They want to remove another 76. So I realize this is going to have to come back in front of the Planning Commission. We're going to have to go through all of this. And y'all grant a waiver, but I think a lot more homework needs to be done on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scurry. We have closed that public hearing. I'm excited to say now we have a presentation from the Transparency Committee report, and I will turn that over to our Communications Officer, Martine Wolf.
Madam Mayors, members of council, it is a privilege and a pleasure to be here today before you to impart upon you the results of a transparency report. Speak in the mic. I always tell everybody to speak in the microphone, so let me do this. The 2014 Transparency Report. In August of 2014, Mayor Page tasked the Communications Office with facilitating a transparency workshop group composed of elected officials, staff, community advocates, to review and to optimize the existing Mount Pleasant Town Council agendas. The Transparency Workshop Group met several times to review the current national municipal practices, existing Mount Pleasant communications practices, and emerging technologies. Based on their findings, I am here today to present on behalf of the Transportation Workshop Group the 2014 report. I would really, at this time, would like to point out the stakeholders, the people that really took a lot of time and effort over several months to really provide you with this report. Councilmember Chris Nichols actually spearheaded the project. He was really a force behind the transparency effort, along with Mayor Linda Page. Councilmember Chris O'Neill was also among us. Pat Sullivan, a community advocate who is often very present here at meetings, was there. Charlie Potts, our CFO, Catherine Hendricks, our assistant town administrator, was also there. We had our David Pagnorini, our legal counsel, was here. Kelly Cusino, senior planner. Lauren Sim, our government outreach officer. Marco Alcoxum, our multimedia coordinator. Lynette Lyons from planning. George Kell with the IT department. It was a joint effort that took us to this particular report you see before you today. What we started doing is looking at other municipalities. How are North Charleston, New York City, Atlanta, Dallas, how are they doing? How are they putting together their municipal agendas? We were very surprised to see that large communities actually had very cumbersome agendas. We looked at the Planning Commission agenda, which has really possessed a lot of qualities that really were implemental in creating the transparency workshop report and the agenda that we are presenting to you today. We looked at the existing communications tool. What do we have? In 2003, we had 210,000 page views on the Town of Mount Pleasant website. Today, this year, we had 4.6 million page views. So we explore some of the communications tools that are actually working for us. In 2003, we had 2 tools. In 2014, we have 12. Website, Notify Me, Report a Concern, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, we were there. The Notify Me subscriber base, it has passed the 10,000 mark. We're looking to go beyond, way beyond that mark. Our constant contact, the rec department has an enormous constant contact email subscriber list is at nearly 22,000 emails that we send out. Facebook, 25,000 likes. Actually, we passed the 27,000 by the time this report was put together. So we looked at existing. Can we do better? Yes, we can. And we looked at ways to maximize communications tool, looking first at the town council agenda, the way it is currently done. We, actually, when I say we, the workshop group decided to deconstruct the agenda altogether. They decided to take everything apart and build it back together. I'm presenting to you, and we will see the agenda at the very end of the presentation. There are a three-prong approach. We have a toolbox, which now provides residents with easy access to documents and information that are helpful to them to better understand the process. What do they need, the tools they need to do so. We inserted pagination. It may be simple, but we did so. In the toolbox are several documents. If you want to look at the meeting support documents the planning department's put on, it's there. The Code of Ordinances links is there as well. An enormous document, wonderful document that's put on by the planning department. The comprehensive plan is there as well. Ordinances, project and application map. I suggest anyone to go visit on the Town of Mount Pleasant website that particular utilization. It shows you on the map all the projects that are currently in the process of being constructed. And it's a beautiful tool from the planning department. Our community advocate, Ms. Sullivan, really very expertly said, well, most people don't know what a TMS is. So now, looking at the town agenda, you'll be able to click on that link and find out what is the TMS information. It will be there as well. A use table link and the zoning map link are also there, thanks to the planning department. The toolbox is a great tool. We're very happy and very proud of it. The workshop group worked very hard putting it together. Other things we did to the agenda, which is link town council to the town council members. Now, when you look at the agenda, you click on the town council. Although you attend a lot of council meetings, some people may not. Now they can view who the council members are. And there were other things that we did to the document justification. But basically, we did the toolbox, linking. There is an enormous amount of linking to the agenda that allows people to get a better handle of the issues. And we did formatting. Formatting change was not really a difficult task to take on, but it really helped in providing a product that was more legible. So did the workshop group stop there? No. What they really wanted to do also is bring more transparency to the video process. Not everybody is able to attend a council meeting at night. But now you can view all the council meetings, a year worth of council meetings from the comfort of your home. They're all there. We are podcasting, and the effort was led by our multimedia coordinator. We now podcast the meetings, both the council meetings and now online, all the December Committee of Council meetings are also on podcast. So that has been done as well. We're really ramping up our Notify Me campaign. There were flyers distributed today to everyone. Subscribe, engage Town Hall, and you will be notified of all the events that are happening in our town. We have a digital information board which was live really this evening before everybody took a seat. What this is, it just looks like this, and it gives you information about current events happening in the town. And we have the ability, the clerk of council has come up with has suggested offering residents the ability to sign online for your town council meeting as early as the Friday before the town council meeting. Of course, you'll be able to sign up to the town council meeting as you did today, signing up to come and speak. But you will have also the ability, if you sign up for Notify Me or contact my office, to sign up online. That will be available to you next month. It by no means takes away the ability to sign up online, to sign up physically when you come to the town council. We have a municipal app which is in the works, which will bring an integrated ability for us to disseminate the information even further. So we're very excited about that. So at this point, I would like to introduce you to the new town council agenda. Please bear with me as I bring it down on the presentation. You can see here the toolbox, clearly visible to your left. Everything that's in yellow has been new changes brought to the agenda. See town council, you click on there, you get your town council members. Very simple things were done. We're in Calibri 15 points instead of Time Romans 15. This is, by current standards, a better, more approachable font. We've inserted numbering. We have hard returns, which allows the information to be more easily grasped. We also have all the minutes, approval of minutes, they're linked. You click on that link, and it takes you to all the minutes. Our financial statements are all online. You can see our financial statements as well. What's really interesting, well, the planning committee minutes are there, and so are the planning commission. If you move further back, further down, as you proceed through the town council meeting, there will be committee reports. What's interesting about those is that they are all now linked to their respective committee meeting platforms. So we have those available as well, and I'm proceeding down to this. There we go. Okay, so as we come on to the committee reports, everything is linked to their respective committees. So that's brand new as well. The extensive linking allows the residents, all of you, to better understand the process and follow through with the governmental process. So those were basically all the changes that were made. I'll go back a little bit onto the agenda, but you can see clearly the recommendation of the workshop group, which were to add negative space to the town agenda, to add linking, and to add the toolbox. So the workshop group respectfully presents this to the full town council body for implementation, which could really happen as early as next month. You would see a new town council agenda.
Wow, that is such great work. I'd really like y'all to give Martine and this stakeholders a big hand for getting this. A lot of towns talk about transparency, but we're doing it. And I'll certainly let Mr. Nichols say a few words. Mr. O'Neill and Mr. Nichols, I don't know how many meetings that y'all attended, but it's great work.
Well, first of all, Madam Mayor and Martine, there is credit that you need to have. And while we don't agree on all things, when I sat down with you earlier, I guess last year, 2014, and you said, Chris, what's important? And we talked about open and accountable government. More than just talking about it, and you said, well, go do something about it. And you said, get together with some folks at lunch. I know that Councilmember O'Neill had expressed an interest in that as well. And your support and your initiative and your Mayor Magic Wand helped form the lunch group. And then while I had big ideas and thought big, it was Martine and many other members of this town staff that did the heavy lifting in terms of the work. And I would like to point out that this is not the final product. This is just this is open and accountable version 1.0. And as we move forward, and I hope that we roll this out soon, there's going to be open and accountable version 2.0 and 3.0 as we learn and we figure out and we see what works, see what feedback we get from the most important people, and that's you guys sitting in the audience. And it's exciting. And so credit, of course, goes to the folks who do most of the work, which is the town staff. But without your saying, I'm buying into that, and I'll go take care of it. I've got some other things it couldn't have been done. So thank you for that opportunity, along with Councilmember O'Neill, to help be able to lead on this. And if we love it, I take all the credit for it. And if we don't love it, it is a work in progress.
It is.
And one thing that it's going to require to do for all of us is to get to really make it effective. Fortunately or not, it's going to be a computer-based model in the sense of if you receive the document electronically and you have an internet connection, you're going to be able to press on the document and it's going to take you to a lot of the background information. It's also simply going to be easier on the eyes. One person reported, I don't think they changed their font since Microsoft Word had been released. I think that was actually true. It's going to be easier on the eyes. In this world, we need to comply with ADA requirements, and we did so by the font will be up to number 15. I know that's important, and we tried to take a lot into consideration. Finally, Mayor, and I know I'll wrap up. We do live in the digital age. It is relatively inexpensive to record meetings. It is a little bit more expensive to video meetings. I'm excited that we're going to do that. And with the new town hall, where that will really be integrated into that, and you have made a commitment to me and to the council and everybody that we are going to get that information out there. by God, we're gonna do it. Now, we may need to hire an interpreter, because sometimes we put out the information and you're still kind of wondering exactly what is it they're trying to say, but that's not lost on us as well. So thank you for letting me comment on that, and thank you for your leadership on that.
Thank you. Any comments from you, Mr. O'Neill, as a member of the committee?
I'll just say, first of all, this planning staff is worked really hard the last 2 years, not that they weren't working hard before that, but putting this information together, having it linked where people can go. I don't think this would have been possible 2 years ago, the way that we have now with online submittals from those that propose projects and things like that, our GIS mapping, some of these things. The information was now there, and the question was, how do we get it to folks? And I thought the committee did a great job, and I think folks weren't shy about sharing their input. And it was more meetings. Mr. Nichols attended more meetings than I did, but I think it's a good product. I think, as Mr. Nichols said, well, it's a good start, and I hope this council will move forward with this proposal. So.
Thank you. Thank you again, Martine. Great stuff. Can't wait next month. You just click and get more information than you ever wanted to know about town council. Mr. Pavlisco, if you're watching, you'd be happy I was listening in civics. So, I believe we have some awards.
Yes, ma'am. If you and council will come forward, please. Would you lead us, please, in recognizing two of our fine police officers for their years of service?
Certainly will. I have the honor to recognize two members of our police department who have been serving our town, our citizens, for quite a while. One of them 25 years and one 20 years. I'm going to start with Deputy Chief Stan Gregg. Will you come up front for me? Just going to read a little bit about Deputy Chief. There's way too much to go into all the different accomplishments. But Deputy Chief Gregg began his career at the Mount Pleasant Police Department in November of 1989. Over the past 25 years, Deputy Chief Gregg has worked in all of the department's different bureaus and actually had an assignment with the DEA Drug Task Force where he worked several high-profile cases that resulted in arrest, convictions, and the seizure of legal funds that benefited the town of Mount Pleasant. He currently is the second in command of our police department. He is responsible for establishing our Citizens Police Academy that I imagine a few of you have attended, and has been instrumental in ensuring our agency meets the demanding standards of national accreditation. His knowledge of accreditation has earned him a position as a national accreditor assessor who travels to other police agencies across the nation, ensuring that they're meeting the same high standards we do. Currently volunteers as a national hunter safety instructor and is heavily involved with the Special Olympics and the law enforcement torch run. Deputy Chief Gregg recently had the honor of representing the state of South Carolina as a torchbearer to open the USA Games that were held in New Jersey. Thank you for your 25 years of dedicated service.
You don't get 25 years every day.
Once every 25 years.
Yeah.
And Inspector Googe, if you'll start making your way up. Deputy Chief, you'll stay up here with us. I appreciate it for a minute. All right.
Oh, you're all back there.
Inspector Chip Googe has been working with our great town for the past 20 years. He actually started his career with Mount Pleasant in 1990 at the young age of 19, before he could even be a police officer. Being too young to be a police officer at that time, he took a job as one of our community service officers. As soon as he was old enough, Inspector Googe took a position as a police officer for the town. Over the past 20 years, Inspector Googe has worked in the Patrol Division and Traffic Bureau, where he obtained the highest levels of DUI detection and traffic collision reconstruction. His hard work and dedication has helped him rise through the ranks to his current position as an inspector. He is responsible for the development and management of our agency's social media pages, phone apps, and Twitter accounts, ensuring we stay connected with our citizens. Inspector Googe, thank you for your 20 years dedicated service to the town.
Officer Jonathan Rustin, would you come forward? Mayor, council, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jonathan Rustin. December 14th, we had our Christmas parade, and it's a wonderful event, as you all know. It brings so much enjoyment to so many people. It's an annual event we have, and unfortunately, we almost had a tragedy this year. There was a mother and child standing near the Shem Creek Bridge, and the child began to choke on a piece of hard candy. And the mother, as well as some of the bystanders, were not able to dislodge the candy from the child's passageway. And nearby, Jonathan was nearby doing bike patrol that evening, responded quickly to the scene, grabbed the child from the mother's arms, performed the Heimlich maneuver, and dislodged the candy from the airways of the child. And certainly without Jonathan's quick response and quick action, something very serious could have happened that evening. So for his attention to duty and for being there and for representing this community and this organization and for likely saving a child's life, he's been recognized as the employee of the month.
Thanks, guys. It's Item number 6 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 9th, 2014 Town Council meeting and the December 2014 financial statements.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Moving on to correspondence and public statements, I believe we have several people signed up to speak.
Yes, Mayor, we do. Bob Brimmer.
Bob Brimmer, 2380 Parsonage Woods Lane. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to comment, I can't stick around tonight to the agenda item about the agenda items, but I wanted to comment as well. I come tonight to ask you to not approve, not support the proposal to have more than one council member ask for an agenda item to be placed on the town council agenda. And usually the concerns here are raised are about the effect it has on the communication and support of our citizens. However, I'm going to appeal to you tonight to the enlightened self-interest of yourselves and as to why you should vote no on this. A vote for approval really means that you will be leaving office with a diminished authority than when you came into office. Because when you came into office, you were able to be an independent voice. You're able to stand alone and to put forward an idea, no matter how unpopular that idea might be. And under the current proposal, you would lose that ability. You would, in fact, have to have the permission or agreement or cooperation of another person to do that. And I don't believe that was what the voters intended when they elected you to this office. They didn't elect you as a pair, as a duo, or as a slate. They elected you as an individual, able to speak individually about whatever concerns you. The second thing I would say is that a yes vote to this proposal, you may be comfortable with a diminished role yourself, but a yes vote really is telling Mr. Nichols and Mr. Garwich and Mayor Page that they shouldn't have that ability either. So you're really restricting them in terms of being an independent, standalone voice for whatever concerns. And tonight might not be that time where you have an issue that you'd like to put forward without the support of anybody else. But that day may come. And I think it's
Thank
really
you, Bob.
important that you all support each other and allow yourselves to have that authority. Thank you so much.
Hugh Moulton.
Please hold your applause.
Hugh Moulton. Mr. Fulton? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Council. I'm here, my name is Ron Folman. I live at 93 North Shelmore Boulevard. And I'm here to appeal to the Council for a change in the stormwater ordinance fee structure for multifamily condominium communities. This ordinance was changed last year. And I need to read a statement to you because there's a lot to cover on this topic. As president of the Legends Owners Association, a 200-unit multifamily condominium apartment community located at the entry to Charleston National Country Club, and on behalf of the owners of our community and the owners of 10 other condo communities, I want to bring to your attention a financial burden that has been imposed on our communities by the decision of City Council to amend the definition of multifamily property in Chapter 52 of the Stormwater Management Program, Section 52.03, definitions. The new ordinance removes a multifamily condo unit from the multifamily classification and adds this unit to the single-family home classification, subject to a fee of $60 per year. The unintended consequences of this change in classification results in an enormous increase in fees paid per community. Rather than a 100% increase for a single-family home, the increases range from 512% to 993% for multifamily condo communities, as outlined in the attached spreadsheet. The increase and change in classification is not supported by the standards set out by the South Carolina Legislature with the adoption of Chapter 14, the Stormwater Management and Sediment Reduction Act. To further substantiate the fact that this ordinance change is inappropriate, I have surveyed the following municipalities and printed off their stormwater
Mr.
ordinances.
Fulman, unfortunately, that's your 2 minutes. Would you like to enter that document into the record?
I don't think it has been 2 minutes, has it?
Yes, sir.
I read this at home, and it took 2 minutes to read the whole thing.
Okay, I'm at 2 minutes, 15 seconds. Are you almost at the end?
Pretty close to the end, yeah.
Okay, I generally stick to 2 minutes, but like I said, we're more than happy to enter it into the record, so it will be recorded. She'll record it into the minutes.
Okay. I have a copy I'd like to present to each one of the council members.
Absolutely.
Madam Mayor, is this gentleman aware of the process for appeal?
Yes, he has been, I have sent a letter, my office has sent a letter in response to this, and yes, he's aware of the appeal process, and I believe he's going through that appeal. I don't know if he started the appeal process or not. Have you started the appeal process?
No, as I suggested, because it's a change in the ordinance, it really doesn't fall into a typical appeal. We had this process happen in 2009, the same situation, and we brought it before the full council. The council agreed with us that the ordinance was inappropriately changed. They changed it back to where single-family condominium units were classified as multifamily, and it's been that way since 2009.
Mr. Garch, I have some legislative information that I'll be more than happy to get to and share with you on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
There we go.
Tucker.
Nice to see you again, Pam. I know you know the routine. State your name and address, and we have 2 minutes to speak.
1 minute, 91 seconds.
No, actually, it was 2 minutes 15, but
Thank you, Pam Tucker, I live on Bank Street. And came to my attention several days ago that Mount Pleasant is second in the nation. The municipality is growing, has a growth rate that is second highest in the nation. And that's something I'm not sure we should be proud of. I think it's something that we should fear, because a growth rate that high, we need to step back and look at what are some of the first steps and learn and say, do we want to continue in this direction? Just a little thing that's part of the plan is the little island on Coleman Boulevard that's by the Monster. And to keep the residents from being able to turn left off of Coleman Boulevard into the Monster. So what they do is they come to Fairmont and they do a U-turn on Coleman Boulevard to get back to be able to turn into the Monster. Now, that's just one small example, and that U-turn, Coleman Boulevard is not wide enough to support U-turns. If that median in the middle of Coleman is going to be extended, where are the people going to be able to, say somebody's coming from Mallard Lakes and wants to go to First Federal, now South State. How do they get back to Mallard Lakes? They have to come would have to turn right out of the bank. How do they get turned around to go back home? They have to do a U-turn at Fairmont.
yes,
And
ma'am.
this is going to be a huge problem, because the problem is already existing because of the residents in the Monster.
Thank you, Pam. And we do have a simulation of the traffic pattern available on the website, if you'd like to go and view it. Thank you very much.
It's not gonna work.
Bill Foxworth.
My name's Bill Foxworth, and I'm one of the owners of 325 Coleman Boulevard, 411 Hibbett Street, the property across from the Okra Grill. We're here to provide information to this council and ask them to honor their previous mayor's pledge. This land has been in our family since 1934, sheet 1 of a handout provided to you. My grandmother gave it to my mother in 1950, sheet 2. The town condemned part of the land and seized it in 1956 to make Coleman Boulevard a 4-lane road. Stayed on sheet 3. Then in the 1960s, the town came and threatened to condemn more of the land for a 5th lane on Coleman Boulevard. So my father gave the land for that purpose and was told by the mayor at the time, Gordon Groggy Darby, Wallace, the town will not take any more of your land. I was a small boy, but I vividly remember this conversation. At this point, the town has taken 71% of our land. Our family's always tried to keep the small town atmosphere on the property. In 2005, we turned down a $1 million offer to build legal offices. We have since turned down offers for Dunkin' Donuts, KFC, and others. We currently house 5 small businesses supporting several families. After my mother passed in 2007, we had the property appraised for $503,000, sheet 4. I attended a Coleman revitalization town meeting in 2012 and submitted my concerns on sheet 5. Later that year, I attended another meeting where I asked the town mayor, Billy Swales, if they were affecting our property. He conferred with his personnel and came back and assured me they were not going to touch our land. Based on this, I then reassured the current tenants, at least renewal time, the property will not be affected. It is important to their business because they have outside dining and wine tasting under one of the largest trees on the property that would be cut down for the proposed sidewalk. The town is a registered member of Tree City USA, a strict tree conservation group. At this time, I'd like to yield the floor to my wife.
Thank you. Mr. Foxworth?
Ms. Foxworth, sure. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Apsley Foxworth, 935 Spelltown Road, Cottageville, South Carolina. I'm the second half of his information. After receiving the assurances from the town leaders in the 1960s and 2012, we received notice that the town wants to condemn 5 feet of our property for a sidewalk. This property starts at the edge. This proposed sidewalk starts at the edge of our property and ends at the back of the building. This means people using this sidewalk would either have to walk into 4 lanes of traffic or walk across our property to proceed. And who really benefits from this? The town's current appraisal of the 29% of our remaining land is $418,000, which is $85,000 less than the appraisal in 2007. See sheets 4 and 6. Do you actually think Coleman Boulevard roadfront property has depreciated? This is my husband and his sister's retirement income that is being whittled away for a sidewalk to nowhere. In conclusion, before our family has to spend $30,000 in legal fees and newspaper costs, we're asking the council to reconsider building this sidewalk to nowhere using eminent domain condemnation. Even using the town's $480,000 appraisal, present value applied to land already taken by the town is over $1 million given by our family. And how much is enough? This is an opportunity for the council to preserve some of the old village while still moving forward with some beautification and avoiding litigation. It is also an opportunity to display common sense, integrity, and concern for the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you much, Ms. Foxworth.
Anita Tankersley?
It's okay, Anita.
Good evening. My name is Anita Tankersley. I live at 1297 or 1297 Waterfront Drive in Mount Pleasant. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak with you, and I'd like to ask each one of you at this table, look out here in the audience and pay attention to what you see. And I want you to remember what you see on every item that you bring up for discussion and for vote tonight and in the future. Remember, these are the people that put you at the table. And I'd like you to please consider, you know what they want. I don't think anybody in here has made a secret of their opinion. So I'd ask that you each remember what the people want. That should be your guideline in your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tankersley. Order, please. Those are all the comments that we have. We'll give Ms. Tankersley a moment and we'll move right into planning. Good evening again, Ms. Farrell. Item 8, number A, under new business, is a request from the Hazel Track. And I'll let us give you some history on it.
As you just stated, the first item that we have for planning new business is a request from the Hassel Tract. This is for a waiver from the one-year waiting period to reapply. As we discussed earlier under the public hearing, we had received an application from the developers of the Hassel Tract to amend the plan development, the development agreement, the comprehensive plan, and then also update their impact assessment and their sketch plan. This item was withdrawn by the applicant prior to the planning commission meeting, and what that means is withdrawal is the same as denial. And they are not able to resubmit or make reapplication within 1 year of that original application. However, there is a provision in the zoning code that allows the property owner to come to town council and to request a waiver from that 1 year waiting period. You have been provided with a letter through the clerk of council that is from the Hassel Tract Development Group requesting consideration of this waiver. And I'll be glad to answer any questions if I can.
I have one question. Can you give me a little history of the waiver and how long that has been an opportunity for developers to come in and ask for?
For as long as I can remember, it's been in the code.
Is there any particular reason that we have ever denied a request for a waiver?
I don't recall a denial.
Okay.
But obviously it's there for your consideration. This is for council's decision.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Santos?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'm going to be voting against this tonight for a couple of different reasons, including but certainly not limited to the fact that they had an opportunity to come before us and they withdrew. They know the rules, they know the laws. When they withdraw like this and then they come back, they expect our staff, who are extremely busy, to stop what they're doing and to tackle the issues that they have brought forward. And as she says, there's a lot of issues that they're going to have with this piece of property that they're going to ask our staff to stop what they're doing and review. You know, we have rules, we have laws. I think this is the third time, if I'm not mistaken, that they'll be coming back to us. You know, Mayor, we have laws, we have rules. The developers know it. This is a development agreement. At the very beginning, when they came up with the development agreement, when they wanted to develop this piece of property, they came to the town and they said, these are what we want, and the town agreed, and we have a contract on that. And I think they need to abide by that contract. We had a road that they were supposed to build that they didn't build in time. We gave them a break on that. But enough's enough. And I know we haven't before denied any waivers from what I'm hearing, but it was time we start. It's time we start taking control and making sure that when these developers come forward with these proposals, that they do it right the first time and not continue to try and take a bite of the apple each time by having our staff review it and tell them what they like and don't like so that they can make the changes. Our staff is very busy, and like I said, I for one are going to be voting against this tonight, and hopefully it'll send a message to the rest of the developers that when you come to our staff, when you come to our meetings, when you come with proposals, make sure you have it right the first time so that our staff doesn't have to stop what they're doing to look at this proposal. I mean, it's going to be a lot of work for them to do. So everybody else's business gets put to the side until they have a chance to review it. I don't think it's fair to the staff.
Thank you for that, Mr. Santos. Any other comments? Mr. Nichols?
Madam Mayor, if the council, first of all, with regard to a waiver, is it a request for a waiver of 1 year in the sense that?
No, we're podcasting, sorry.
Mr. Nichols. All right. Good deal. All right. Are they asking for a request to not have to wait a year, but to simply make the request, and then if it was granted, would they go before the planning commission as they wanted to do apparently in December, but did not? Is that what they're requesting?
Yes, the request is to reapply in anywhere before 1 year passes, so they could potentially come back if they were prepared for February or for March or whenever may be. But it would start at the beginning again. It would go back to the planning commission and through the regular process, planning committee and council.
Okay. And when waivers have been granted, and I've granted them, I think everybody on this council has granted them from time to time, is it simply a waiver of the 1-year period, or sometimes the stipulation is, well, 30 days, or 60 days, or 90? Do you understand where I'm going with that?
I don't recall anything that has specified anything other than just granting the waiver.
Okay. Have we received feedback from the Planning Commission current chair or former chairs, to your knowledge, that the waiver, when granted by this council, has caused the Planning Commission itself to somehow feel like they are not in a position to properly address the requests that come before them?
I haven't heard.
I haven't heard either. I'm just wondering if staff has.
No, sir.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Nicholson, and good points. The reason I asked if we had ever denied a waiver before is perhaps not, is it time to start tonight to deny a waiver because of a particular project or something you don't like? Because we haven't had the opportunity to vote on a project because we haven't seen it. You know, actually, we're ultimately voting on a waiver. So it's just giving someone more time to get information to bring forward through the process. If you have a problem with the waiver itself, perhaps instead of deciding tonight that we're not going to grant a waiver, as has been our practice, perhaps we should have a bigger discussion and get rid of the waiver opportunity.
That's a good idea.
So what's the favor of this council?
I'd like to have that discussion. It's a good idea.
Mr. Carey?
I'll move for approval of the waiver.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second for approval of the waiver, and I have people signed up to speak, and then I will address individuals in the audience.
Thank you, Mayor. Elaine Eustace.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. My name's Elaine Eustace. I'm 1554 Rifle Range Road. This is me. This is my mother. We've lived there a long, long time. And I'm not, whether the waiver is approved or disapproved, I think is a small issue. I think the bigger issue that Mr. Scurry already previously addressed, and Councilman Santos, is that the plans have changed so many times, and so the waiver is to have this rezone, this area, 30 acres here, as commercial to support a assisted living facility, and they can give you all the details on that. But my concern is twofold. Number one, Mr. Scurry's point about the increase in density. And number two is my fear is that if this is rezoned commercial and they change their mind again, am I gonna end up with another Walmart in my backyard? Which I know won't happen since there's a Walmart right next door. But my point is that I think with this whole project, we need to be very watchful and very cautious as to how this is moving forward, because it has changed every time the wind has blown a different direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Eustace. And this waiver is not actually about the zoning. So this waiver is just giving them an opportunity to get back to us so we can finally make a decision on what's going to happen, whether we approve or disapprove that. Thank you.
Diane Lambert.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Diane Lambert. I'm at 1382 Woodlock Road. I'm here on behalf of myself, but also I'm the president of the HOA of Laurel Lakes. So obviously all of this affects us. I understand that the request tonight was for the waiver, but I did want to take this opportunity to express my disagreement with a lot of what's proposed here. And I agree with Ms. Eustace that there's been so many changes, we're not sure what's going on. Mr. Barbary from Reader and Associates called me at the 11th hour to let me know that they were pulling their item off the last agenda, and has said that he would keep in touch with us. Of course, I haven't heard anything, which is typical. Want to let everybody know that I've been dealing with this personally since about 2005 when all of this started. And, you know, it's an ongoing battle. We never know what's going to come up next. I'll be up here again when it comes up, but I just want to voice my opinion that I'm against this as it stands now.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Lambert.
Janet Place.
Good evening. My name is Janet Place. I live at 1701 Welford Street in Laurel Lakes, and I'm here for an opportunity to voice my opinion and concern over the rezone for this area, obviously. Traffic density, a major concern. The area is currently undeveloped and traffic is an issue. So moving to high-density residential and commercial is a serious concern of both mine and my husband. And we built our home new in 2010 in Laurel Lakes. And in addition, the construction in commercial as opposed to residential, and it's my feeling that there's a larger impact on the community in terms of pollution. We have numerous lakes and in this area, which I believe were already affected by the condo construction. And in addition, the number of trees and the historic grand trees that are proposed for removal is a further concern of ours. Once again, I'm here as another opportunity to voice our concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jimmy Bagwell.
My name is Jimmy Bagwell. I live at 207 William Street here in Mount Pleasant, and I'm here tonight to represent Save Champree Corporation. Our board of directors voted unanimously to oppose the waiver on this request. I believe that the waiver serves a good purpose. If you have your plans and they're not right, and you haven't consulted with your neighbors, and you haven't made sure that you've got the support of the people that you're going to be building around, then you ought to have to wait a year to come back, and you ought to have to use that time to get it right. We think that this property was approved 2 years ago. The plan was approved 2 years ago, and here we are back again. I think you ought to maintain the waiver, Ms. Mayor, and I think that the people in this community ought to be heard from. They're very concerned about this project, and I don't blame them. I think that we need to look at the densities that have been proposed. They're way too high, and I tell you, the other thing is, how many times must people in these communities keep coming back and back and back? I say deny the waiver, give these people a year to get their breath, and give the developer a chance to get a plan that will pass muster, because this one will not. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bagwell. Please hold the applause.
Jerry Scurry.
Jerry Scurry, 1386 Woodlock, Laurel Lakes. Yeah, I totally agree with Jimmy. I think this waiver should be denied. These people are overreaching due to market conditions, and I'm in the real estate business. I understand what's going on here. And by pulling this amendment at the last minute, the kind of tactics they're using, I think they need to learn a little bit. You know, get your homework done, get it straight, meet the people, understand. And one other little point, the continuing care retirement community, which is Liberty Healthcare Development out of Wilmington, I've contacted them twice to try to talk to them about what exactly they were going to build. And the architect, which is LS3P, locally, but they're using the North Carolina office, they refuse to talk to me. They won't answer an email, they won't call me back. So transparency is something we are talking about here. Well, this project has a big lack of it. So again, I think you should deny it. Thank you.
Doreen Eager.
Good evening. My name is Doreen Eager. I live at 1650 Baldock Court in Laurel Lakes. And
Ms.
I'm here
Doreen,
to...
I cannot
Oh,
hear
I'm
you.
sorry.
I apologize. Thank you.
Is that a little better?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. I'm here to talk about the waiver. Whether the waiver is passed or not really is here nor there, I think. The concern ultimately is the changes that they're looking to propose here. And I have an issue with the decreasing the number of low-density housing that they were going to put in there and putting in commercial offices and apartment buildings. You're increasing the number of personnel coming in and out of that area, 2,000 or 3,000 people in and out of that area. It's already congested. You have Rifle Range Road right now, rush hour in the morning and at night. I can barely get out of my subdivision right now. So you add 2,000 or 3,000 more people in and out of there every day, it's going to be like deadlock. Also, I think that you're doing a great disservice to the Laurel Lakes community by putting up large apartment buildings that will be adjacent to their properties, right in their backyards. I don't think that's right to do to these residents. They're going to lose their privacy, and maybe their property values may even go down. So, I just, for their sakes, and the people that live on Rifle Range Road, I would ask that you do another traffic assessment maybe, and look at that prior to these changes being made and approved. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. That's all I have signed up to speak on this issue. Other comments from council? Yes, sir.
Yes,
Mr.
Madam
Parks.
Mayor, and all my council members, I want to let you know that I will not be voting on this project. I will be abstaining. I have a potential conflict of interest.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from any other council? Yes, sir. Mr. Glassen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The two people that spoke, I really appreciate the comments. I think Diane and Doreen at the end really hit home, and that the development, the changes that are occurring. I think if the developer were comfortable with the changes they had made, well, they'd be sitting right here and looking for the approval. So they perhaps have gotten wind that the changes that they're proposing is not only of dissatisfaction to the residents, but also the council. Although I will respectfully disagree, I don't know how putting a restriction of 1 year to continue to plan that, as long as the end product, I don't know, trying to teach them a lesson, or I don't know if that is really the prudent route. So I'm in favor of the waiver, but I'm also in favor of the increased communication on the residents that live there. I know there's 4 homes, that there's different fences and barriers that needs to be directed by the developer to get done right. There needs to be, I know that they've got the buffers in consideration, but what Doreen said, you've got a giant complex in your backyard, it kind of removes the privacy of why you bought there in the first place. So making the developer go back and overbearing in his communication out with the community to make sure they know exactly what's there. And whether that, Jerry, when you came up, whether they'll send that to you or not, we'll go to the developer and let's find out exactly what they are proposing, so then it can be vetted properly in the proper timeline. So I do appreciate the time, Madam Mayor. It's just some comments on what.
Thank you, Mr. Glassen. Mr. O'Neill?
Procedurally, a question. So let's suppose tonight that we deny the waiver for whatever reason. Is it then denied for a year as well, or could they come back and ask for another waiver if they have another proposal ready to come forward? So in other words, if they come 3 months from now and we say no tonight, could they then say, well, now we have a plan, here's our plan, could we have a waiver? Or are they automatically denied for a year, or can they ask multiple times for waivers?
I understand through the planning department that this is a 1-year period. They have to wait a year.
The ordinance specifically states that the decision is final.
Okay.
Right. And I think it goes back to a development issue, and I think you've all brought up very valid points. I'm not one that's going to vote against the waiver tonight, because I don't think waiting a year is going to fix this. I think what will fix this is that we all make them build a good project, work with their neighbors, have good buffers, not destroy trees, count density as we would ask them to count it. I think there are other issues here, but we haven't had a chance to vote on that. So tonight, I'm going to call for a vote just on the waiver, and I have a motion and a second. I have one more comment, Mr. Nichols?
Yeah, I do have a comment. I wanted to follow up on Councilman O'Neill's question. Mr. Pagliarini, let me make sure I understand. In lawyer speak here, it's often the case that you or I, when we're in our private practice lives, go to a court and we ask for a motion for a continuance. The judge may or may not grant it. And this is actually a little bit analogous in the sense that the developer or the representatives of the developer are coming and are requesting relief from a one-year waiting period. If we deny that tonight, is there anything in our code that would prevent that same developer from having a council member, perhaps one, perhaps more than one council member, place on the agenda a request 3 or 6 months from now to reconsider? In other words, I appreciate Mayor Page's view on things, but I wanted to hear from the legal counsel.
You've asked a lot of questions in one, because you mentioned reconsideration. There's a provision in the rules for reconsideration, and then there's a series of events that have to happen, whether, as you're well aware, whether a council member voted against it, they can bring it up for reconsideration, so all those avenues are there. What Ms. Farrell mentioned was, it's a one-time, you get one shot, it's a final decision. I can envision a situation where the request is altered to a degree that it may not be the same request. And staff would have to look at that on a factual basis. So I think those are the two things that I tell you, that there is a way that it can be done, but it really depends on what the request is.
And then finally, Mayor, my sentiment is that I agree with your initial observation, Madam Mayor, that the idea of the waiver and how it's applied and whether it should be allowed and so forth would be an excellent topic for our planning committee to take up in the future. I'm also not a big proponent of, whenever possible, of changing rules in the middle of the game. And if it has been tradition and just over and over through the years that the waiver request has been routinely granted, it would be awfully tough on a big developer, big development project, or a small, because sometimes it's smaller folks who come before us as well. And so I'm mindful of that as we move into the future.
Well, I appreciate that. And development agreements are quite different. We've had some conversation about the fact of how long staff does have to prepare. So I think it would be an interesting topic for us to discuss removing the waiver process. Or we could also discuss extending the time that staff has to respond back to development agreements and make it a little longer so they're not quite as burdened. So I certainly hear everyone concerned here. I'm gonna call for the vote. I have a motion for approval and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
And the ayes carry.
Abstain.
And one abstain. Moving on to item number 2, this is an ordinance about an annexation of a piece of property on Howell Street, also known as Lyman Lane.
Yes, this particular annexation came before town council back in August initially, and there was a request for deferral. There was a second request for deferral. Then again in January, the same occurred with the zoning request, which I will review next. But when this did come before the annexation committee originally, it was recommended for approval for annexation.
First reading. Second.
Thank you. I have a motion for first reading and a second. I also have a question pertaining to the request. This piece of property, oh, never mind, I'm fine on the annexation, that's good, never mind, I'm good here. So, I have a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. And the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 14052, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately .07 acre vacant tract of land being a portion of what was formerly known as Howell Street, now known as Lyman Lane, such portion now identified by TMS number 53208000096 and shown on a plat recorded in Plat Book S58 of the Charleston County RMC office.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Item number 3 is that same piece of property, and this is a zoning.
This is a zoning request, which was also deferred twice at the request of the applicant. This is a request to zone area-wide business a 0.07 acre parcel of land. The property is recommended for commercial uses. The intended use for this property is to provide a setback for a proposed telecommunication tower. If the applicant or the property owner does want to proceed with a telecommunication tower on this property, they will also have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. for special exception approval. When this went before the Planning Commission, originally, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the zoning by a vote of 6-3. The Planning Committee had a tie vote, therefore they had no recommendation on the zoning of property.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I have a question pertaining to the zoning. We are only zoning the little green line, correct?
Yes, it is very small, 0.07, right? This strip right here, which will be essentially aggregated with this parcel right here.
Okay, and that's my question and my concern. That road, Lyman Lane, is a road. It is a impervious road that allows access to the county piece of property that is identified in the stripe, as well as some of the properties in the front piece of property that is in front of the county piece of property. So my concern is if that is aggregated onto that additional lot, that will landlock the county piece of property. So I was wondering if we could hear from the applicant to see if they would be intending to, before we move forward with the zoning request, if they were intending to offer relief in some sort of form of a written agreement that that property owner will have access.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, Jonathan Yates. Absolutely, we met right prior to the meeting with the neighbor in the county, the residential property in the county, Mr. Michael Page. We gave him our assurances. He was given a letter by the existing property owner that the access would remain. In addition, I spoke this afternoon with Mr. Page's attorney, Mr. Skipper Woody, and one other recommendation we have, if we go forward with the communications facility request to the Board of Zoning Appeals, in my application to the Board of Zoning Appeals, I'd ask that it be placed as a condition of approval that access always remain in place. So therefore, it could be locked in for any approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals, who has the ability under Title VI to condition approvals.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And for full disclosure, Michael Page is my brother. Not that I wasn't unaware of this issue before it was my brother's. I'd ask if there are any other questions from the applicant here by any of the council members.
Yes, Steve. By the act we just performed, Christiane, on the annexation, what would be the zoning right now? Just on the annexation? R1. R1. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Thank you. What's the favor of the council?
Move for first reading. Second.
I have a motion, and a second for first reading. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And the ayes have it.
First reading, ordinance number 14053, an ordinance to zone AB area-wide business district and UCOD urban corridor overlay district, an approximately .07 acre parcel of land located on the former Howell Street near Chuck Dolly Boulevard, now known as Lyman Lane, and identified by TMS number 53208000096.
Madam Mayor, I didn't get a chance, I voted no. I didn't get a chance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's
Thank you.
okay.
First, thank you. Item number 4 is the first reading on a First Amendment to the Plan Development Ordinance known as Harmony Way.
Yes, this item actually came in front of council in October and was requested for deferral at that time. We as planning staff communicated earlier today with the applicant, and about an hour before this meeting, he sent me email correspondence, and he has withdrawn this application.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 5. This is a first reading for an ordinance of an annexation of a piece of property in Pepper Plantation.
Yes, this is the annexation of 1472 Old Rosebud Trail, which has been recommended for approval by the Annexation Committee.
Question.
Yes.
Which, I see 2 pieces in green.
Yes.
Which piece is it?
I'm sorry, Mr. Sars, I don't know. Let's see.
Trick question.
I believe this one is War Admiral and that one is Rosebud.
All right.
Yeah, that's War Admiral.
We've done a series of these for this neighborhood. Tell us about what the long-term process here is. Is it they've got a formula that gives them so many units per acre. And as long as they can continue to provide green space or open space. So I take it that these right here will be brought in and zoned in conservation open space, not to be touched, which then allows them to build more units somewhere else in this neighborhood?
The annexation petition, the zoning application is trailing the annexation petition. It's going to be going in front of the planning commission next month, so it's going to be running 1 month behind the annexation, so that will be for your consideration next month to make it part of the plan development.
Right, and I knew that, but obviously, one triggers the other, and I'm eventually gonna talk about it, so I tend to ask a question that ties both of them together. That's between the annexation and the zoning, so.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I thank you for that. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
First reading, ordinance number 15003, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 3.0 acre parcel of land known as Lot 12, located at 1472 Old Rosebud Trail, Pepper Plantation, identified by TMS number 61500000147, and shown on a plat recorded in PBEH 978 at the Charleston County RMC office.
Thank you. I believe we have another one on War Emerald Court, item number 6. This is the first reading for also an annexation of Pepper Plantation.
Yes, and as noted, the plan development zoning request will follow next month.
Move for first reading. Second.
I have a motion and a second for first reading. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
1 no.
First reading, ordinance number 15004, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 2.4 acre parcel of land known as Lot 28, located at 3515 War Admiral Court, Pepper Plantation, identified by TMS number 61500000159, and shown on a plat recorded in PBEG 978-979 at the Charleston County RMC office.
Item number 7 is first reading to rezone from AB to AB2, a piece of property on Bell Point and Long Point Road.
Yes, and that property is shown up on the screen right now. This request is, as noted, to rezone from area-wide business to area-wide business 2. The property is recommended for commercial uses. The intended use is for outdoor storage. However, what's in front of the council today is just consideration of the zoning itself to area-wide business 2. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their last meeting, and they recommended denial by a vote of 6-2. The Planning Committee also recommended denial by a vote of 2-1.
Move for denial.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for denial.
Question.
And I have a question. Yes, sir, Mr. Gary.
We didn't cover this in the committee meeting, but do we ever do a zoning change on a set time frame? Well, there's no way to do that.
That would be conditional, and we don't allow conditions to be placed on the standard zoning districts.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I have someone signed up to speak.
David Bunch?
David, if you will state your name and address for the record, we will give you 2 minutes to address the council.
David Bunch, I live at 6605 Sealy Road in Allendale. My brother and I purchased this property about 25 years ago. We used it in the trucking and port-related business. And over the past few years, we've had the opportunity to probably sell the property. What we did is we joined the town of Mount Pleasant, and the reason we joined the town of Mount Pleasant was to get water and sewer so we could sell the property. Subsequently, we found out that there was no physical way to get water and sewer. So the bottom line is I sit with a piece of property, a very valuable piece, but there's no way for me to generate any money to pay the taxes. And so all I'm asking is to get this AB2 classification, because what it would allow me to do is to have some kind of outside storage. I certainly don't want to go in and there's no way I can really build anything that would allow it to deal with the public, because it wouldn't have any restrooms for them. But by an outside storage, then I would be able to at least pay my Charleston County taxes that everybody else did with their property taxes in the last month or so. So just respectfully request to get the zoning changed so I can make some money, pay my taxes.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Mr. Bunch, a question for you. Sure. What is the reasoning that you're unable to get water and sewer? What are you being told?
What's happened, and with the careful development that y'all are all working toward, and I applaud that 100%, is I'm dependent on the development of this property all the way back to here, that will be coming up pretty soon. And if I thought it would go through pretty smooth, then I wouldn't be near as concerned, but I see some more delays, so I sit withering on the vine up here. What happens is, Long Point Road, the water and sewer, the sewer from here is a pressure line on the other side of Long Point Road, and therefore the only way for me to get natural flow is go all the way back to Paul Foster, that I'm blocked here, here, and then the neighbors over here. So I joined and signed the agreement to join the town of Mount Pleasant to get the water, or get the sewer, and it's physically impossible to get to it. It'll happen when these pieces are developed, but I'm thinking it's gonna be a while after tonight.
I just, I find that rather interesting and almost baffling. But I guess because of the design set up, that line that's on the other side of Long Point Road, the engineering to it doesn't allow to tap a line and then go to your property.
And
What
furthermore,
am I missing?
yeah, and you know, because I'm like you, it's just such an odd situation. Bell Point Drive is, on both sides, are full of fiber optics that go back to the fire department back there. So there's literally no room for the water and sewer to be put in on public property. I'm just caught in the middle, is what the problem is.
Thank you, Mr. Bunch, I appreciate that. Any other questions for Mr. Bunch?
Just for staff.
Okay. Christine? Sorry. We just have some questions for you.
Just to restate, AB versus AB2
Yes.
zoning.
Yes.
And
Everything.
what's permissible?
Okay, everything that is allowed within AB is also allowed in AB2. So that's all your typical commercial uses, such as your restaurants, retail, and office uses. But AB2 is the more intensive zoning district, and so that's where things such as outdoor storage are allowed only in AB2. They're not allowed in AB, and it does require a special exception approval. Other things that are more intense and require typically another level of approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals would be things like high-impact entertainment, high-impact recreation, so like a go-kart or something like that. It would also fall in that category. Car repair is another one. And then it changes how a gas station is reviewed. Also, for example, a gas station is a special exception in AB, meaning that it has to have approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals. In AB2, it is simply a conditional use approval, which is a staff level approval. So it is more intense uses.
Thank you.
Ms. Farrell, if a piece of property is zoned AB2, there's no trigger or condition that the council can put on it that at the time of sale, it would go back to AB. So the challenge, I think for Mr. Bunch is, I don't think anyone on this council wants to deny him the use of his property, and he has certainly a very limited use without water and sewer. I believe water's available, but without sewer, so he could have restrooms for customers in a retail situation. If he were to bring something to show his use, would it help any with, if he was gonna use partial temporary zoning, there's nothing, I guess my question is, there's really nothing that this council can do to limit how much he can have that's AB. It's either all or nothing, correct?
That's right, at this point. Now, if for whatever reason the AB2 were approved, and then he did have a specific plan for outdoor storage or for car repair or something like that, the Board of Zoning Appeals could provide some limits, but the property's owned AB2 at that point, and so all of those uses are now allowed uses, or at least allowed by way of special exception.
Forever?
No, it's specific to that, whatever it is that's, well, that particular use, yes. Like if it was a car repair.
And what triggers BOZA to make that determination?
An application for special exception approval must be submitted to the Board of Zoning Appeals. They hold a public hearing, and then they determine whether or not to approve it, and then from there they can place conditions. on the approval.
And this project, or if it was a project and was going to be out there storage, it would also have to go through design review board?
Yes, Board of Zoning Appeals first and design review last.
Right, and we would more likely than not require some large fence, not see-through, not chain link.
If I remember correctly, that's already one of the conditions that's in the zoning code that the Board of Zoning Appeals has to address as part of the special exception process.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council?
I do, I have a question, and I don't want to beat this horse, I've already beat it good. Mr. Demore, can you think of any examples whereby, in your time that you've been here, where we've had someone who wanted to come into the town with a piece of property, and they did, and they were denied sewer?
I cannot.
I can't either. Learn something new every meeting. That's just baffling to me, but I'll get over it.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bunch, you have another comment?
Appropriate enough, but I don't want to build anything like a shop or anything else. I just want to store stuff, pay my taxes, and I know that it's going to take requirements to be able to store stuff. But when we start running a service station or a mechanic shop or anything else like that, I don't want to do that. The best thing is a restaurant or something nice on that corner, and that's what I'm looking for down the road. Just want to get to that point. I just think the development's going to take a long time to get back.
I understand.
Thank you.
You know, you come into the town and you wanted more than sewer, and I'm trying to figure out what I can do to get you sewer.
Which might be another conversation. At this point, I have a motion and a second for denial of rezoning to AB2. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion denied. Item number 8 is a first reading of an ordinance to amend the Dunes West Plan Development District, known as Park West Parcel 3A through 1B.
Yes, this is a request to amend the Dunes West Plan Development. This particular parcel is located in Park West. It is shown up on the map here, so it is located just behind a small commercial center. You'll see it located here on the map, Park West Boulevard and the main roundabout leading to Highway 17. This property is currently, per the Dunes West, original Dunes West Plan Development map, actually has 2 zoning districts on it. It is zoned both office, professional, and multifamily. I can go to that map in just a minute just to further illustrate that there is a question about exactly where those zoning lines may be. So what the applicant has, or the property owner has actually requested, is to zone the entire property multifamily in accordance with the Dunes West regulations. The Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommended denial by a vote of 5-2. The Planning Committee reviewed it and recommended approval by a vote of 2-1, limiting the development to a maximum of 18 dwelling units. There was a lot of discussion, if need be, that I can get into regarding access to the property. I know the applicant is here and can address that as well. And then, Martine, if you would go a couple of slides later, I will show the Dunes West map. Keep going, please. This. So the property that is in question is actually located right here. And this is an old map, 1990 map, but right here, there you can see both. This is multifamily. If you can't read that, and this says office professional, and therefore the property does have 2 zonings on it, and at the very least, I think needs some clarification as to what the zoning on the property is.
Thank you. Question? Yes, sir, Mr. Nichols?
Yeah. Can you go back to the non-1990 map? Thank you. I'm trying to, I'm going to use a landmark in free commercial for Joey's Bag of Donuts. Is that the property
Yes.
behind Joey's Bag of Donuts?
Yes,
Is that what
right
we're
there.
talking about? Okay.
Right.
And the request is they'd like multifamily behind there?
The property is currently shown on that map, the bubble map that I just showed you, both multifamily and office professional.
Okay.
So they have requested that the entire property be multifamily. It's the same owner.
How many
For
acres?
both properties.
How big is that?
It's 2 acres.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Glassen?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Why did they request it? I mean, through reading, it was indicated that they could not adhere to putting commercial back over, some additional buildings back there, and have it profitable because there's no street frontage. However, if you look 20 inches to the north, that whole area is all professional.
It's all commercial.
I think that's probably more a question for the applicant.
Is it here?
Yes.
Can we, Madam Mayor?
Absolutely.
Mayor, Council, my name is Jeff Thomas. I live at 606 East Hobcod Drive in Mount Pleasant. We have owned this property for approximately 7 years. This property was originally planned as a office professional use. We have access via recorded easement into this property. As you all know, this 17, there's a traffic circle. There's also access into this parking lot. I'm the managing member of Parsons Road LLC, which owns these two buildings right here and this parcel. So any access easements, further access easements, or anything of that nature, we can definitely do. We've had this parcel on the market for 7 years as office professional. I think I've had 3 calls on it. The bottom line is that this property will be developed one way or another. Residential at this point, and I think going forward. And it makes sense from the interconnectivity. As some of you know, Joey Bag of Donuts, there are several children-oriented retail uses in here. You know, very convenient for the folks that would live in here to be able to walk to this site. Further, and I don't know if Martine, you have that slide that shows originally there is showing the interconnectivity to the next site over.
You're gonna run out of your 2 minutes,
Okay.
sir.
Anyway, there's interconnectivity into the sites, and the whole idea was to have interconnectivity from Park West Boulevard into this site, and then to the sites that are to the northwest of the property.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, I have a question before he steps away. Mr. Thomas, at the planning committee meeting, you went over the traffic count and the car situation. Is that something that you could enlighten us on as a North Mount Pleasant resident in Rivertown, and 3 high school boys commuting to Wando and going down Park West Boulevard is something I don't need to read emails about. We live it every day, sir. And I'm not interested in more cars, I'm interested in less cars going down that and in many other areas throughout our town. Could you talk about the difference in the traffic count between commercial use and residential use?
Yeah, I'm sorry we don't have these slides up, but by generally accepted metrics, residential of 18 units will generate about 1/3 the number of trips as 13,000 square feet of office space or office professional, which we are, I believe, entitled to put on that property as the zoning is in question at this point.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. Any other questions for Christie-Ann?
Just a comment, not for Christie-Ann. Madam Mayor, thank you for recognizing me.
Mr. Nichols?
Yeah, this isn't, you know, these are coming up more and more often. This isn't unlike the matter that came up in Brickyard. just a month or two ago, where basically the plea was, look, we are entrepreneurs and we purchased some land on hoping to develop some commercial and office space, and over the last few years, really haven't gotten any bites. Can we come forward and turn it into, in this case, some sort of multifamily situation, because we think the market is so scorching hot that that won't be a problem. I think we know how the vote went for the Brickyard initiative just a month or two ago, and I think I'm going to remain consistent along those lines. I believe that the market has very much changed, really just in the last couple of years, and that I'm not convinced that this will be, and by the way, the risk of purchasing the property goes along with the risk of being able to develop it and sell it. We're not here to ensure that. Risk takers, it's why it's called risk taking. So I'm going to urge the council to consider this carefully, as we do all questions, but to support our planning commission, who voted 5-2 in denying this request.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. Councilman, I concur with most of what you said, with the exception of a very important piece that you left out, in my opinion, that unfortunately for this property owner, who didn't just buy this as a spec property to flip it and develop it, that's my understanding, they own and have owned both parcels of property for some period of time, and has 2 zonings currently on it. So in our own ordinances, we have created, not the purchaser, the risk taker, as you eloquently described, we, the town, allowed a plan to have 2 separate zonings on the same parcel. So the owner of the parcel is simply asking to do what they're currently entitled and have the right to do based on our own zoning. So I find this scenario not at all like the Brickyard development, sir. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir, Mr.
Maybe,
Nichols.
maybe the town administrator can refresh. Was this zoning that was enacted last year or the year before, or approximately when was this planned development? 1990?
25 years.
25 years ago. I didn't live here. I didn't vote on it at that time, and I don't think any of us were on the council at that time, and that's part of the big deal. Well, I'm here to help them give some clarification tonight, and my vote will reflect that clarification.
What's the favor of the council?
I move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Any other discussion?
Move to call the roll.
Roll call, please. Ms. Barrett?
Mr. Carrier?
Aye.
Mr. Carrier votes yes. Mr. Garch?
Aye.
Mr. Garch votes yes. Mr. Glass?
Aye.
Mr. Glassen votes yes. Mr. Nichols?
No.
Mr. Nichols votes no. Mr. O'Neill?
No.
Mr. O'Neill votes no. Mr. Santos?
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Smith votes yes. Mayor Page?
No.
Mayor Page votes no. It's a tie vote.
For parliamentary procedure?
Time vote, motion fails.
Thank you. Motion fails as a tie vote. Item number 9 is first reading on an ordinance to amend the Dunes West Plan Development District ordinance in Park West.
Yes, this request is also in Park West, and this is to amend the Dunes West Plan Development Ordinance. This is a property known as 12B. This is a total of 9 acres that is shown on the aerial. It is comprised of 4 parcels. The parcels here are currently zoned office professional and R3, and this request is to rezone all 9 acres to RTH, so townhome use. The intended use is for 49 townhomes on this piece of property. The Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommended approval by a vote of 5-2. The Planning Committee recommended denial unanimously.
Motion to deny.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to deny. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? and the motion fails. Denied. Item number 10 is the first reading on an ordinance to provide an amendment to the Bell Hall Plan Development. This is regarding the maximum lot size. I mean, site coverage size.
This is the Bell Hall Plan Development Ordinance. This is specific to the Wando Park Boulevard area. There is a maximum site coverage limitation in this area of Wando Park, which is inconsistent with our town ordinances. You all have seen a couple of requests recently to amend specific parcels to remove this requirement. So this proposal is to remove that requirement entirely from the Wando Park PD and make it consistent with the town ordinances, and has been recommended for approval by the commission and the committee.
First reading. Second.
I have a motion and a second for first reading. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
First reading ordinance number 15008, an ordinance to provide for an amendment to Bell Hall Plan Development District Ordinance as amended by removing the 35% maximum site coverage limitation for a portion thereof.
Thank you. Moving on to old business. Item number 1 is a final reading of an annexation of 1.36 acre parcel of land at Johnny Dodds and Queensboro Shopping Center.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And the ayes have it.
No.
Oh, excuse me, opposed. And 1 no.
Final reading ordinance number 14085, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 1.36 acre parcel of land located on the Johnny Dodds Boulevard frontage road near the Queensboro Shopping Center, identified by TMS number 53500000021.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the final reading, I believe, on that same piece of property. And this is, has a little bit of history. I'll let you go over the request and the results of the meetings.
This is the zoning request, and the zoning requested is area-wide business. The applicant had requested not to be included in the urban corridor overlay district. The planning commission recommended approval 5-3 with inclusion in the overlay. The planning committee recommended approval with inclusion in the overlay, and then, of course, last month.
Move for final
council-
reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. O'Neill?
I voted no on item 1. My intent was to vote no on item 2, not item 1.
Okay, and just for clarification, Christie, and a question. So we approved the annexation with final reading, and this request, if the applicant chose not to move forward with the project because they didn't want to be in the overlay district, what would happen? I mean, if we put the condition that they have to be in the overlay district.
Well, with final reading, they will be in the overlay district.
Okay, well, that's fine. So I guess what I'm saying is, part of it is the type of building they would have to construct.
It would be where it's located. They would have to do 2 stories on the frontage. The building would have to be pulled to the street, and so this would prohibit something very similar to what you see on a neighboring property, like with the Chick-fil-A, for example, with the wraparound drive-through. So the building would at least be up the street to promote the pedestrian activity.
So it would be built like the Chick-fil-A, or it
No,
would
it
not be
couldn't
built?
be.
Couldn't be. It would
That's
have to
right.
be pulled forward, have to be 2-story, similar to the new Walgreens that's being constructed in front of Staples?
Right.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, this is approval with
overlay.
inclusion into the overlay district.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Thank you.
Final reading ordinance number 14086, an ordinance to zone AB, area-wide business district, and UCOD, urban corridor overlay district, and approximately 1.36 acre parcel of land located on the Johnny Dodds Boulevard frontage road near the Queensboro Shopping Center, identified by TMS number 53500000021.
Thank you. Item number 3 is another final reading of an annexation of 13.3 acres parcel of land.
Move for final reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for final reading. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Final reading ordinance number 14087, an ordinance providing for the annexation of approximately 13.38 acre parcel of land identified by TMS number 57800000053 as further described herein.
Thank you. Item number 4 is the final reading of an ordinance providing for the First Amendment to the PDCD Plan Development Conservation Design District on Old Georgetown Road.
This is the zoning.
Second.
This is a zoning of that similar product.
Same
and-
property.
Same property. And I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Final reading, ordinance number 14088, an ordinance providing for a First Amendment to PDCD, Plan Development Conservation Design District Ordinance, number 13053, pertaining to property known as Old Georgetown PDCD.
Thank you. Item number 5 is final reading of an ordinance to rezone from R1 low density to R2 low density residential, 2 parcels of land on Mathis Ferry Road, 3.4 acres.
Yes, and this would allow a maximum of 10 units. It does not change the density going from R1 to R2.
Move final reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for final reading. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Final reading, ordinance number 14089, an ordinance to rezone from R1 low-density residential district to R2 low-density residential district, 2 parcels of land located on Mathis Ferry Road comprising 3.4 acres.
Thank you. Item number 6 is final reading of an ordinance to rezone from AB to AB2 area-wide business district, 2 parcels of land, 1.3 acres at 1426 and 1463 US Highway 17.
This is located on the frontage road near Abidawile and 526, and is obviously up for...
Move for final reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for final reading. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. We
Call
might
the
have to
roll.
call that.
Hang on.
Mr. Carrier.
No.
Mr. Carrier votes no. Mr. Garge.
No.
Mr. Garge votes no. Mr. Glassen.
No.
Mr. Glassen votes no. Mr. Nichols.
No.
Mr. Nichols votes no. Mr. O'Neill.
No.
Mr. O'Neill votes no. Mr. Santos.
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Mr. Smith.
No. Strange hearing.
Mr. Smith votes no. Mayor Payne.
I'll make it unanimous. No. Motion fails. Thank you. Moving right along to committee reports. Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll submit my reports, as well as bids and purchases, Madam Mayor. No action required on either report.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Economic Development.
Madam Mayor, we did not meet. I have no report.
Fire Committee.
We did not meet, but I do have just a quick report. Last month, we had 15 fires, 458 medical, 215 other, with a total of 688 calls. That's my report.
Thank you. Human Resources.
No meeting and no report. Thank you.
Patriots Point Development Authority, no report. Planning Committee.
Planning Committee did meet, Mayor and Council. We did have a discussion of multifamily development, density and mixed-use plan developments, and how to proceed with options for stakeholder input. Staff provided an update to the committee on growth figures for 2014. Staff also provided an overview of the town's density provisions, including bonus densities available in 3 zoning districts. The committee agreed that mixed use needs to be more specifically defined. The committee had already identified 25 to 30 stakeholders, as well as a number of questions and issues for discussion. The committee decided to continue the discussion until its February meeting, but left open the possibility of holding a special meeting prior to the regular February meeting. That concludes my report.
Mr. Carrier, thank you for stepping in for Thomasina Stokes Marshall. It was a great start of a conversation about growth in the town of Mount Pleasant. Police Legal, Mr. DeMore.
Thank you, Mayor. The committee discussed a public safety grant for DUI enforcement and education. Also discussed an MOU with the U.S. Marine Corps regarding training. And finally, the committee also reviewed the transparency report, which you saw earlier this evening.
Thank you for that. Public Services Committee.
Briefly, Madam Mayor, while the Public Services Committee did not meet, it's my sense that I just wanted to say thank you to you, Mayor Swales, and Mr. Peel, to have been the chair of that committee for the last 3 years. It has been my privilege, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Recreation Committee.
We did not meet, but I do have some numbers for everybody. We did 460 swim lessons in December. We also had 792 youth and 1,142 adults participating in athletic leagues. The senior center current membership is 2684. And tennis center membership is 991. I too want to congratulate Jody. If you visited any of our fields and any of our rec complexes, you could sleep on them. They're just beautiful. I hate to see anybody tear them up. That concludes my report.
Thank you for your protectiveness over those facilities. We have Transportation Committee, we'll turn that over to Brad Morrison. We have to review some Charleston County Transportation Sales Tax and CTC annual project selections.
Yes, ma'am, and spend as much time as you wish on each of the projects. What you have here in front of you are the recommendations in the form of 4 motions for the 4 different categories we generally submit. First being intersection improvements, then we get into drainage improvements, and the bike and pedestrian improvements we break out in kind of higher speed, higher volume, and lower speed, more residential projects. So the first motion, and these reflect the priority that comes out of the committee. The first motion was for the intersection improvements, number 1 being the 41 Joe Rouse intersection improvement, which is developing a dual left off of Joe Rouse onto 41. Second is Mathis Ferry Lauda. We've spoken to that intersection a good bit in development discussions, and that involves signal installation at Lauda, some turn lane modifications for a triple left condition at US 17 Mathis Ferry. And the last is a signal installation at Ben Sawyer and Center Street.
And you need motions individually on each of these to move this forward?
Yes, ma'am, that would be preferable. That gives a good priority to both the sales tax and the CTC committees.
Move for approval.
Second.
On intersections?
Intersection improvement.
Intersection improvements.
Okay, so taking them one at a time. We have a motion and a second for approval of the selections for intersection improvements. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes carry. Drainage improvements is the next we need some help on. And
3 neighborhoods, various improvements. Hillary went into detail a good bit at the committee meeting, and we phased them to be more in line with what we expect to be what's going to be allocated on an annual basis. The Gross being the top priority, then Hobcall Point, and then finally Oak Haven.
And obviously, in case you missed that committee report, a lot of the drainage improvements also protect our roadbed. Some of these issues are road water in the road issues, so they're also tearing up our roadbed.
Move for approval of the drainage improvements.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the drainage improvements as recommended by committee. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it. Then we have the higher speed volume facility, pedestrian, and bicycle improvements.
Yes, ma'am, and this is the priority, once again, came out of committee. Park West being number 1, two roads in Park West Boulevard and Stockdale, then Porches Bluff, Stewart Ingalls, and 2 on Rifle Range that we submitted for many years, and they don't get funded, so thus the others moved up.
Thank you. And I'd like to add that they're all priorities. They should all be top priorities, but we're taking the amount of money that we can and putting it at the top of the list. What's the favor?
Move to approve the higher speed, higher volume pedestrian bicycle improvements as stated.
I have a motion and a second by Mr. Garch. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it. And the last one we have is the lower speed, lower volume, also pedestrian bike improvements.
Yes, ma'am, and the only one I'll note there is that Wando Park Boulevard, as classified as number 3, is going to be brought forward in the discussion on the CIP program for a TIF match, and that would be noted in our application.
Thank you.
Move for approval on lower speed, lower volume.
Have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
And the ayes have it.
I'm sorry,
Opposed?
just a second on that.
I think either Gary or...
They were both kind of at the same time. Okay, moving right along. Waterworks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Water Supply Committee did not meet, and Water Commission report I'll submit to you in writing, and I also would like to report that Councilman Garwich's concerns about sewer are so noted. I'll dig into that and make sure we get some answers. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Bunch would appreciate that. I appreciate you for bringing it up, Mr. Garch. Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Announcing to the public the 12 opportunities to serve. We have vacancies on the Historical Commission, Old Village Historic District Commission, the Planning Commission, the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee, Culture, Arts, and Pride Commission, and Design Review Board. If members of the public are interested, they should contact Ms. Barrett, the Clerk of Council, to the right of me. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Council business, under new business, there is no new business to be addressed by this council. Under old business, we had amendment to the agenda earlier. Item number 5 will now become item number 1, and that is final reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 30 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances by amending subparagraph B of Section 30.34 pertaining to agenda submittals by council members. I brought this forward last month. I have put a copy of an amendment I requested last month if we could get first reading of an ordinance to bring 3 members forward, that I would come tonight and revise that request to make it an additional 1 member. I've given you quite a bit of details. This is in front of you at this time, and I worked a lot on it because I wanted to keep it very fair. I wanted to move the work back to committee, and I could go through the details individually if you'd like. Part of it was how a council member has the opportunity to put something on a council agenda. And the suggestion that I'm bringing forward is that an agenda item proposed by one council member be first submitted to the proposed chair of the appropriate standing committee, with a copy given to the town administrator no less than 5 days prior to the scheduled committee meeting. If the chair of the standing committee declines to place that item on the committee agenda, or the committee makes no recommendation within 60 days of the next scheduled meeting, then the matter will automatically be placed on the next council agenda. Should the standing committee, after a vote by a quorum, affirmatively vote to decline to place the matter on the town council agenda, then the requesting council member with co-sponsorship, which is where the other council member comes in, may submit the proposed agenda to the council for consideration no later than 4:30 p.m. on Thursday prior. So the goal is to get it to committee and then get it to council where we can get the good work done. And I believe it will give us opportunity to have great dialogue and great discussion without time constraints. And that's what I have put before you tonight.
Madam Mayor, I move to amend the ordinance to reflect the following changes. At least 2 members of council can request an item be added to the agenda by Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Second, at least 2 members of council can request an item to be added to the agenda for a special meeting if submitted in writing to the town administrator at least 48 hours in advance. And 3, 1 council member may bring an item for council agenda, but must request in writing with a copy to the town administrator that it be placed on the appropriate agenda at least 5 days prior to the meeting. If the committee refuses, there will be a subsection on that A, if the committee refuses to put the matter on the agenda or makes no recommendation within 60 days, the matter automatically goes to the council agenda. B, if the committee votes to put the matter on the next council agenda, it goes to the council agenda. C, if the committee votes to deny that, the matter go to council. The requesting member must find a co-sponsor to put a matter on the next agenda. That ends the amendment to the ordinance.
Thank you. So I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second as described by Mr. Smith, any other questions or discussion?
Happy to reread that if anyone would like me to.
Is that any different from this?
No, it's not.
I'll be happy to lead off if you don't mind, Mayor.
Certainly.
Thank you for recognizing me. Madam Mayor, I think that arguably I've been the most outspoken person, at least I've tried to be, on your initiative to modify the way a council member, any one council member, can bring something before council. And I believe it was brought in the spirit of efficiency, and that's what you so stated, and I take you at your word for that. But I disagree that we have an issue or a problem as it exists now. In fact, I think that the current ordinances are working just fine. In rare instances, a council member, during my last 3 years here, has utilized the ability to place something on the agenda directly, so to speak. And in each of those instances, while I personally may have had a disagreement about what the topic was, or maybe even what the intent was, it certainly was something that was of interest to this town and to its citizens, which was obvious by the number of citizens who would appear at our meetings, our regular town council meetings, to address the topic. And I agree that, or I recognize that it was the exception to the rule. I have not, sometimes I put my lawyer's hat on and I say, what is the case that is being made to each of us to cede authority that has been granted to us by our own ordinances and has been granted to us by our good citizens who elected us at large to represent the entire town of Mount Pleasant? What is the problem? What is the beef? And is it risen to such an extent as to radically change the format for bringing something before council? And I have not appreciated personally that the case has been made that we need to change the ordinances as to placement of matters on the agenda. And I will be voting against this amendment, and I'm going to urge my other council members to do so. But it goes more than that. Interestingly enough, while this has been rarely utilized, and I think a point has been made, and you have certainly educated myself and the members of this community by speaking out on the topic as a whole, and I point taken, I get it. It would appear to, I think, the vast majority of our citizens, and I think that's reflected in, I am sure, the letters and the emails and the other correspondence received by all members of this body, that it just doesn't pass the test of open and accountable and access to government like we've been all been preaching and embracing. In fact, I think it, from a public relations point of view, it actually has the opposite effect. It has been rare that a proposed ordinance, a procedural change, has been commented on by the local newspaper, the Post and Courier, devoting an opinion piece on their editorial page about it, by one of their lead commentary writers devoting an entire column to it, by the Moultrie News with one of their lead columnists devoting a column to it, by letters to the editor, mine included. And I just don't think that the folks and the citizens in this town are buying what this ordinance is selling. I would also indicate, by the way, just listening to the methodology that was set out a few minutes ago was enough to, want to make your head explode. It was complicated. It was, and it seemed overly burdensome. Let me get the bottom line here. Tonight, 2 is the new 3. Because last month, it was going to be 3 members of, and that's what was voted on last month. It would have taken up to 3 members, or at least 3 members of council to place something directly on the agenda. It now says 2. Let me tell you the practical effect of it now says 2 if this will pass. As long as I'm a member of this council, if any one of you, any one of my fellow council members or you, Mayor, says, I want to place something directly on the agenda, I'm going to be that second person every time. I may not vote with you, but I'm not going to deny you access to getting it on the council agenda. All right, so let me assure you of that. But I would also encourage all of us to use that methodology rarely and as the exception and so forth. The next thing says, well, what about a council member who wants to put something on an agenda directly under the new amended document, a document which, I know these things run late. I picked up it, was laying on my desk or at this desk at 5:30 today. It states the following: 2 or more, whereas, et cetera, that agenda items proposed by one council member shall first be submitted and proposed to the chair of the appropriate standing committee. What does that mean? Appropriate is, many of our topics are cross-pollinated. It might be development, it might be building, it could be traffic, it could impact our police, legal, judicial. So just right there, I don't like the idea of trying to identify what the appropriate standing committee is. And then it gets lost in a swirl of, well, if the committee does this or doesn't do that, but after a vote by the quorum, it's voted to decline, then within 60 days. I just don't, I don't care for this proposed ordinance. I think that we do not have a problem. I think that our government has been running quite nicely, thank you. I do not believe a case has been made to cede the authority to place items on the agenda by any council member by giving up some of that authority. And by the way, full disclosure, I have never done that. I've been on here for 3 years and I've never placed something directly on the agenda. And full disclosure, I've never had a committee chair, by the way, not put something on a committee task. And I don't want to get into the he said, she said, and this happened to me bit and all that. It's not important. What's important here is we need to take our personalities out of this. We need to take our emotions out of this. And we need to say, does this proposed ordinance advance the best interests of the folks of the town of Mount Pleasant? Is this what stands for open and accountable and access and lead our folks to trust? Or does it send a different message? I think it sends a different message. I hope that we find the courage to respectfully and I forcefully recommend that we vote against this. Thank you for letting me speak.
Order, please. This is a council meeting. Please order. Yes, sir. Mr. Santos, you have a comment?
Yeah, Mayor, and thank you, Chris. I agree with what my colleague just said, as well as what Bob Bremer so eloquently said earlier. I mean, we all know why this ordinance is here today. Certainly, you might as well just name it after me, Mayor, because that's basically what it's about, and that's okay. I'm all right with that. This ordinance has served us well for the 14 years that I've been on council. I've never seen it abused. The items, as Chris had said, that has been brought forward were pertinent items that the citizens want. And I don't want to limit any of these council members to be able to bring something to our committee or our council. I think it's important. If it's important enough for them to want to bring, they ought to be able to do it. We're elected by the citizens. We're elected to represent the citizens, whether their voices are large or small. The idea is we're elected by all of them, and we ought to be able to bring their issues and their ideas to council without having to worry about buddying up with another council member or shopping for a second. As I said, this has worked well. We all know why this is being done, and I think the ordinance is that's in place is a good ordinance, and, you know, I'm ready to move forward with that ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. I would have to agree to you that you might not know my motives, but thank you for noting that you think you do. Any other comments from this council? I have two signed up for this issue.
Jimmy Bagwell?
Jimmy, you know the routine.
Yes, ma'am, I know it pretty well. My name is Jimmy Bagwell. I live at 207 William Street, and I'm here representing Save Shem Creek Corporation. Our board of directors voted unanimously to recommend that you not pass this ordinance tonight. We think it is a bad move. Somebody mentioned public relations. I think it's the worst public relations move that you could possibly do. If you try to limit the voice of elected officials who have every right to come up here and speak on behalf of their constituencies, I think you have done a bad service to this town. I urge you not to support this, not to vote for it. I want to commend Councilman Nichols for his commentary just recently. Just a few minutes ago. It was well said, well stated, and made a heck of a lot of sense. I was on town council for about 12 years, and I think that several times I can remember people brought things up that people were concerned about. And I think that we have the right as elected officials to bring those concerns to this forum. So I urge you not to support this amendment, not to vote it into law, and to go with what is already there. It's worked well, as Councilman Nichols said, as Councilman Santos said. Please don't do this to yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bagwell. I have one other signed up.
I do, Mayor, we're trying to clarify. Mr. Foreman, did you sign up under this item as well? I did. Okay, good.
Again, my name is Ron Folman. I live at 93 North Shelmore, and I would also encourage the council to vote against this change in the ordinance. I think it's very limiting to your abilities to represent the taxpayers in this town, and therefore I don't think it's in the best interest of the council to do that, or in the best interests of the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That's all I have signed up. Any other comments from council?
There's a motion on the floor for the amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for the amendment and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Point of clarification. This is to accept on the amendment only, and then there will be another vote after this regardless?
Yes, sir. This is for the amendment as stated by Mr. Smith. If the amendment is passed, then there'll be a vote on the final version for final reading. If the amendment fails, then there would be a vote on the what went through first reading.
Thank you.
Or another possible amendment.
Thank you.
Mr. Carrier?
Nay.
Mr. Carrier votes no. Mr. Garch?
Aye.
Mr. Garch votes yes. Mr. Glassen?
Aye.
Mr. Glassen votes yes. Mr. Nichols?
No.
Mr. Nichols votes no. Mr. O'Neill?
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill votes yes. Mr. Santos?
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Smith votes yes. Mayor Page?
Yes.
Mayor Page votes yes. Amendment passes.
Final reading, ordinance number 14095, an ordinance to amend chapter 30 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances by amending subparagraph B of section 30.3.
I'm sorry.
That's not the final
That's the
reading.
amendment.
That's
That's
not-
right. That's
that-
just the amendment. So now there's amendment, there could be further amendment, there could be any motion to deny, approve, or whatever the council feels.
Wait a minute. So we need a motion to approve final reading.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for final reading. Any further discussion?
Yes, ma'am. Last month when you proposed this, I told you and I told all the council that I was gonna support what you put before us with 3, but I told you I would not support the second reading, the final reading. I would entertain some type of amendment.
what you brought forth tonight. I've served here for several number of years as well. I see it just the opposite. I don't see any kind of limiting. Actually, I see a positive move to honor a process. I don't see personalities, I don't see emotions, and I haven't seen personalities or emotions in the almost 14 years that I've served here. I think I've shared with y'all before, it's ironic, Jimmy, you mentioned Save Shem Creek. The closest I've ever come to making an emotional decision was to approve a $6 million purchase of an acre of land and all that dock area down at Shem Creek. And I got over it because I knew it was gonna be forever. But back to this, back to honoring the process. I'm a stickler for honoring the process. Again, it's not about individuals. Tonight, we led off with a wonderful presentation from Ms. Martine here about transparency to committee. And you note, once you talked, it wasn't about anything being broken, anything that wasn't working. It was about taking everything that we had and making it better. Because nothing we do here is broken. But everything we do here can be improved upon. So, contrary to the comment about shopping for a vote, I don't see shopping for a vote at all. I see it quite the opposite. I mean, there's 9 of us, and we can all come up with a different definition of politics, but it's the art of compromise. We all know that. It's being able to talk to each other. It's being able to engage, interact, and play give and take. It's not about playing games. It's not about quid pro quo. And if anybody thinks that I've ever participated in that, I'd love to have someone take me to task right here, right now, on that situation. So again, it's not about individuals, it's not about personalities. Any idea that I've ever had or I've come across, there's always been a way to get it introduced. To sit here as an elected official and say that you have an authority taken away from you or you're being limited to your power, I don't get that at all. I just don't get that. Maybe you don't have a full understanding of how the process works, and I would encourage you to get a full understanding of how the process works. Yeah, we can sit around and somebody might not like what somebody said, and they might carry that on their shoulders. You know, you need to get over all that. We don't need to, like I alluded to this last month, being able to discuss things ahead of time and getting someone else to second it. And Mr. Nichols, I'm glad to hear you a second every time. I agree. There have been many, many occasions where I have either made a motion or seconded something, but ended up voting it down. Just to have that dialogue, just to have that discussion, just to have that exchange, because it's going to lead to something else. It's why I always ask questions. They're going to lead to something else. Like earlier tonight, quite intriguing about, I want water and sewer, but I can't get sewer. That's going to lead to something else. But to say that you got to be able, if you're going to have a room full of people, you got to have an understanding of what you have on the agenda to be able to discuss it responsibly. We've witnessed many a time what happens, and I referenced it last month, with our school board, which I hope is going to get a lot better now, 75 Calhoun, where they make motions to add things to the agenda that night, and nobody knows what's going on. Now, we can all say, well, if that happens, we can just second it and send it to a committee. You're correct. We don't have to have discussion. You talk about PR and a perception issue, when you got a room full of people, and they just, all of a sudden you had a motion and a second to send something to committee, there's no discussion, or there's a motion and there's no second because no one thoroughly understands what's being brought there, and it sits there. And all of us sit here and it looks bad. To me, pushing the interaction of the 9 here is worth it. Every ounce of it for this town. You know, I'm not going to go on and on again. I see it a different way, as I said. It's very open. It's very transparent, and to me, it's a way to improve on what we have, just like we do with so many things in this town. We preserve, we protect, and we enhance. And there's nothing wrong with doing that with the system that we have in place here, with the beautiful way we're going to do our new agendas and the cameras and everything. It's all moving in the right direction. So I would encourage all of you to shake off any self-proclaimed daggers that you've got a target on your back because somebody doesn't like you. Move on and do the business of the town. We got a lot of good things in front of us to do. A lot.
A lot of good things we need to turn down too and get straight. It's all there in front of us. That's my comments, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garch. Any other comments? I believe, yes, sir, Mr. Nichols?
I agree with a lot of what Councilman Garrett just put out there. I do want to remind the council that the current law provides that a single council member can add something to an agenda, but not on the night of the meeting, but I believe at, is it the Thursday?
Thursday
prior?
by 4:30.
Thursday at 4:30 prior. And so that is one, and that has been that way apparently for a decade or more. And I just am not and in the rare instance, let's just use it for instance, let's suppose I utilize that, and for whatever reason, I am not interested in determining what the appropriate committee is, because I might not know, or I might choose wrong, or there are instances where you don't want an item to be swallowed into the committee system where it could marinate for quite a while, by the way. A committee system that meets on Monday mornings, which is a whole other topic that I would like to bring up sometime in the future. There may be a reason to bring it, in my view, before council. I know that Mr. Santos and others who are sitting up here have utilized the methodology to bring something direct to council. And then council does have the right to do all sorts of things. You could take discussion, you can move to table, you can send to a committee. The mechanisms are all in place. And so I just want to remind us of that. And so what are we actually, what is the message that's actually being sent here? The message is that we would really prefer to utilize the important and time-honored committee system. And I think that message has been well received, and there's no need to change the law, in my view. But I already have a sense, based on the last vote, where this is going, so I will stop talking, and I appreciate the opportunity to say my piece.
Well, I always respect and appreciate your comments, Mr. Nichols. I do believe we have a motion and a second on the final reading. I have one more comment, Mr. Glassen.
Well, I appreciate both times that Mr. Nichols spoke, and he's traditionally very eloquent in his description, as well as Mr. Garch. And I will second Mr. Nichols. If someone wants to put something on the agenda, I'll be the second. And I think that the effort and focus, at least in my eyes, within the details that Mr. Smith put out there in the adjustments to the ordinances, or the ordinance requiring that. And I think by having this put in place, as Mr. Garrett stated, it increases our ability to bring the facts and information. It leaves no doubt whether a council member has contacted, and to each of us can attest to whether we've honored the system or not. But it leaves no doubt that system has been, or that item has been vetted, it has been placed before the council. If for whatever reason it is denied, then please, everyone knows my cell phone, I will absolutely put it on the agenda, because I fought tooth and nail at a great personal expense to make sure that the system is honored in my tenure here. But I believe that this is the right move that places it before the committee, into the staff, and brings it out. So when the residents show up here and they want answers, instead of something similar to what happened on the school board where they can't get answers, and instead of taking the time to then just send it back down to committee, have a process in place that prevents that and makes us more efficient and makes us more transparent.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Agree very much with your comments. No other comments from the council. We have a seconded motion on the amendment. We'll call the vote again.
What are we voting on?
We're voting on final reading
With the amendment?
with amendment.
Request a roll call now.
I did.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry, you didn't hear me. I did request that.
You gonna reverse that roll call one day? It's in Robert's rules, you know.
You know, I would love to reverse the roll call occasionally. We'll take that up next meeting. How about that? And perhaps we might have a seating change if we had a draw that
All right.
at a future meeting.
Mr. Carrier,
No.
Mr. Gart,
Aye.
Mr. Glass,
Aye.
Mr. Nichols,
No.
Mr. O'Neill,
Aye.
Mr. Santos,
No.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Page.
Yes. And the ayes have it.
Final reading ordinance number 14095, an ordinance to amend chapter 30 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances by amending subparagraph B of section 30.34 pertaining to agenda submittals by council members.
Thank you. Item number 12 on our agenda is a need to go into executive session. I'm sorry, did I miss something? I was back in order because it was on the bottom of the page. I'm sorry. I apologize, y'all.
Mayor,
Moving.
are we unanimous on all the other items on old business?
Should be.
We have been unanimous, but we can go through them very quickly.
Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. We'll move right along. We'll go to number 1, which is now number 2, final reading on an ordinance to amend the
Move final reading.
smoking.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have
Final
it.
reading ordinance number 14090, an ordinance to amend section 138.03 of chapter 138 smoking and tobacco products of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances by amending the definition of retail tobacco store.
Thank you. The second is a final reading on an ordinance to amend the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinance by dissolving the council standing committee on annexation.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the ayes have it.
Final reading ordinance number 14091, an ordinance to amend chapter 32 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances by dissolving the council standing committee on annexation.
Very excited to read the next one. This is final reading on an ordinance to amend Chapter 32 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinance by adding a new section establishing an additional standing committee of council, Committee on Education.
Final reading.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. And the ayes have it.
Final reading ordinance number 14093, an ordinance to amend chapter 32 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances by adding a new section establishing an additional standing committee of council, Committee on Education.
And last but not least, it's a final reading on an ordinance to amend Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinance by amending the Transportation Committee.
Final reading.
Less members. I
Final
have
reading.
I have a motion and a second for final reading. All in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, discussion, certainly, absolutely. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. It basically, as I understand it, it's a request to take from 4 members to 3 at the Transportation Committee. I think 4 members on Transportation Committee, it should remain 4 members. My position on that is, basically, my understanding is that the most important or highly impactful items of interest to the town of Mount Pleasant in terms of issues should be our greatest number of committee members, i.e. planning has 4 members, police legal has 4 members. I think transportation is right up there, and I think that having 4 members on transportation makes sense to me. I have not heard a case for why we should reduce it by 1, and it's not even self-serving. I think it should remain 4, much in the same way as we took a hard look at water, and that kind of survived scrutiny for good reason. I think that transportation should remain at 4. One comment about transportation, I note that I think the ordinance provides that the mayor should be on transportation. I actually don't disagree with that, and I think that the ordinance or having the mayor on transportation reflects how important transportation is. We want the mayor on transportation. So I would ask council, before we just blaze through on this one, to kind of pause, hit the pause button for a second, consider if anything I just said makes any sense, and then I'm encouraging us to vote no. Let's keep transportation at 4 members. Thank you.
Certainly, Mr. Nichols and I will address your comments because I was the one who initiated this consideration. And for me, transportation is certainly one of the most important issues we deal with in town. The first thing I did when I was elected mayor is ask for an increase in the millage for the first time in 20-plus years. And that increase in millage is a tax increase, if you want to hear it that way. And that was to go straight into improvement products that we couldn't fund any other way. We are often all together, but we are annually all together at the retreat. Our CIP projects are ranked and listed by all of us. We all 9 have a voice in these projects, so the individual meetings were not of my concern. As we picked today, the projects that were to go before us, whether our funding from the Charleston County Sales Tax and the CTC, we all vote on this anyway. So it's not that it's not important, I think it's probably the most important. And I think the decision that I made to do it, again, is an efficiency issue. I don't see that 4 is necessary on the standing committees when we're dealing with issues that come before us. The big projects to me are what's important, but I appreciate your question. And what's the consensus of the committee for final reading? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes.
Final reading, ordinance number 14094, an ordinance to amend chapter 32 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances by amending section 32.12, subparagraph B of the Committee of Transportation.
Thank you very much, and do have a need to go into executive session. I can speak, I promise. I had a piece of soft candy in my mouth, I apologize. We have consideration of the BOZA appeals application. Do you have a motion? And a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Yes, okay. We are in executive session.
Once again, I got the load.
How long are we gonna be here?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.